Empowering your team to go further, how to unlock individuals to do more. So we're gonna be talking about like superpowers today. And part of leading, I think, is also asking people to do things that make them uncomfortable. So I'm gonna ask you, if you're sitting in not the front row, come to the front row. Come on up, like right now. Come on up. Because this is gonna be a little audience participation too. At some point, I want you to be thinking about maybe experiences that you've had in unlocking potential in your team. Because we all know that as we build teams, the whole goal here is to scale, right? Technology scales process, but also people scale other people. And I'm excited to introduce three of those people who've had these experiences. Matt Lasher, who's with West Her Automotive, Kayla Cody with Richmond Ford, and Phil Gill. So with that, I'd love to start with some introductions.
Yeah, so I'm Phil Gill with Tom Gill Chevrolet. We're a single point Chevy store out of the Cincinnati marketplace.
Guys, Matt Lasher, marketing director at the West Her Auto Group, 39 stores, over 3,000 employees, all in Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, New York.
I'm Kayla Cody. I'm the vice president of the Richmond Ford Auto Group, and we have 3 locations in Richmond, Virginia.
Awesome. So this will be participation. So if any time you guys have questions, please bring them up. Kayla, I understand something kind of weird happened to you in your life. Can we start with that?
This is why you don't talk to your moderator before the panel. I ride horses competitively, and I had a pretty gnarly fall, and I actually lost my voice for a year. So if I talk too much, I'm just catching up.
Like legit, couldn't talk at all.
Like this.
Wow.
Matt, can you beat that?
I'll give you guys a little like focus on your health tip here. So like towards the end of the first wave of COVID there, the fall of 2020, I developed a condition called Ramsay Hunt, which was shingles in my ear, and I had partial facial paralysis and tinnitus, ringing in your ear, and I had vertigo for like 6 months. People don't know what causes shingles, right? But some say it's due to stress. And I would say, there's a fair bit of stress in automotive during that period. And I have 4 kids that, also add to that level. But I would just say caution, you don't want Ramsay Hunt. You don't really want that. But I didn't lose my voice for a year. So that's good, I guess. Is this like
Welcome
a therapy
to
session?
WebMD. This is perfect. Phil, what ailments have you suffered?
So no major ailments. Sorry to disappoint. I guess the only thing I can add to cool hobbies is I was a race car driver for a good part of my life. So, that was kind of a fun thing, but no serious incidents from that.
It's kind of dark. Like we got to change the race car driving is better. That's more fun.
So I think in leadership, it's really important to know the people first because the why drives the what. So I read in automotive news recently that you did something really cool for your service techs. Can you, with banners, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we put banners in our technicians' bays, and this is not groundbreaking in any way, shape, or form. No genius stuff here. But being a Ford technician, Ford stores, is probably one of the more challenging OEMs to work with. I think we could all agree on that. So their banners show their level of technician. So it could be quick lane or diesel or anything like that. There's 4 stars in the bottom. There's their signature, which we digitized, and then we're able to get onto the banners, and the year that they started. I didn't expect this to be a big deal, to be completely honest with you. I did want to surprise them though, so we installed them at night, and they came into the morning to their banners over their bays, and it's, to date, one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. We had tears, we had FaceTimes back home, we had people taking photos to send them out, and they talked about it for months. I knew it would foster a little bit of competition, which I wanted, and I wanted back there. We do that in sales all the time, but we don't necessarily do that on the fixed ops side. And so now they'll kind of get each other a little bit, oh, when are you gonna get your 3rd star? Come on, what you doing? You've been in quick lane for a really long time. What you doing? You moving up? So they kind of mess with each other. I knew that would happen, and I wanted that. What I didn't know would happen was now it is the beginning of every video MPI. They are so proud of it. They're like, this is me, this is how long I've been here. We've got techs that have been there since 1992. That's pretty crazy. And then when people come in to interview, they can look around and see, wow, this is a place that people stay. That's really cool. The third thing that I would have never guessed in a million years is they kind of like challenge each other on it. And so if we're behind on our banners, like if we haven't updated it, because it's a whole ceremony now, right? Like you get a new banner, we unfurl it, shop meeting, whole nine. They will like put it out and be like, oh, no one's better than me. I'm the best tech now, whatever. So I really enjoy that part of it.
Who's ever done something and it turned out better than you anticipated? Nobody? It all just sucked afterwards? Come on, people. Okay. So I call that, is this concept that I always like. It's saying nobody wants a fully formed future, meaning you have this idea, right? You had an idea, and then you started executing on that idea, and you gave it space to breathe, and it turned out better than you anticipated.
We gave it 6 months of breathing space. Our service managers were fighting over what was going to go on the banner. We got analysis paralysis. It was a time. But when we finally got to put them out, it was really impressive, and I was super happy with it. And I tell them all the time, like, this is your bay. Like, you have a business within my business. Like, this is yours. And this is a physical representation of that. And I was so happy that they were so proud of it. And they keep it a lot cleaner now, too.
And how do you think that has affected, or is there any measurable retention around that for employees?
So we've only had it for a year. I don't know that there's measurable retention, but I can tell you when we interview people and they see those, they're much more likely to join us. Like they mention that. They're like, no one else had this. And then the other thing that happens is when you join, it's scary in a shop. Like this is, some of us are scared to go back there. So it's scary in a shop and you might need a tool or whatever. And you have to learn who everybody is. And there's this uptick time that it takes just to get acclimated to a new shop. That's gone. You're like, hey, that's the diesel guy who's been here for 12 years. I bet you he has the tool I need. So it's just easier for new hires.
Very cool. Any questions? All right. Matt, so keep me honest here. 2,700 employees?
Jesus.
We're over 3,000. It's like almost 3,100 now.
35 rooftops?
39.
39. 52,000 car sales? That number's wrong.
60,000.
Okay.
And 500,000 ROs.
I had 400,000. Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's talk about motivation. What are the ways, we'll talk about retention second, but motivation. What are the ways that you vision motivation for your company and so many team members?
I was thinking about this prior to the panel and jotted down. There were sort of 5 layers, I think, to motivating an employee. First of all, I would say you can't make anybody be anything more than they are. So I think firstly, and this applies to maybe any business, but self-awareness of who the employee is. You could have a salesperson that's totally cool selling 10 cars a month, and that's great. They want to sell 10 cars a month, not 25. You need to be okay with that as a manager, right? And so I don't think it's always necessarily trying to squeeze a few more car sales out of that person if that's not really what motivates them. If they're not driven by, financial results or ego, they don't want to be on the leaderboard or whatever. So I think having an innate understanding of the person, really matters. But so the 5 things I thought: pay plans, number 1, you got to pay people. Okay. But beyond that, managers have to look at the pay plans and how they're performing year over year. How is the person's pay? Is it up or down, right? We as individuals know that, but sometimes you just take for granted. I learned that as a manager. I had a team member come to me. I wasn't really paying attention to their pay, and they got approached by an outside company and was offered a job for more money.
Okay, so pause there, because I think that's kind of an aha moment.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you're taking responsibility around helping them make more money instead of expecting them to sell more cars to make money.
Well, and not just selling cars. I mean, it could be a technician. We talk about buying power that's reducing on the consumer side, but a tech that's been with us for 25 years that's making $80,000 and has been making $80,000 a year for a while. You have to be sensitive to what does that mean actually. They're actually getting squeezed, right? Their ability to afford their life is getting more difficult, right? Daycare or whatever, groceries or gas or what. So I just think being aware of, is their money up or down? And that could be any position, not just a sales performance, revenue generating position. It could be a title clerk or, something of that effect too. I think we as employers have to care and be aware first. But also I think employees, and I always encourage our teams to talk about it. So come to your team, don't assume your manager knows, right? Advocate for yourself. Yep. I think is a big, Brad and Kelsey on my team are here, and they know this, but I've dared them all to quit many times, not in a mean way, but in a spirited way of if we're not as a company providing the opportunities that you want, now it's my job to help you grow beyond the walls of Wester. I don't own you, right? I want to empower you to do whatever your thing is. Now, hopefully I can provide opportunities within the Wester walls that allow you to grow and, thrive. But we're not holding people hostage either, right? So you got to care about the people. I think that was the sort of the second thing there. So you have pay plans, career path options. We do that at Wester. In-store management team has to care, right? Your direct report. People quit bosses. They don't always quit companies, right? I think that's pretty well understood. Having a mission that's bigger than yourself, a corporate mission. I think Wester does that pretty well with our Wester Cares initiatives, which we can talk about or not talk about if you want. And then, leadership. Scott Beeler and our executive team, I think, create a dynamic servant leadership culture that people can look towards and aspire to become or be influenced by. So I think those are that's what I think about with respect to motivating employees. It's part pay, it's part caring about the person, and it's part giving them a mission or a reason that's bigger than themselves.
Awesome.
How was that? Was that okay? Any takeaways from that?
Phil, tell me what you're doing at the Chevrolet store to motivate.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we focus on as a leadership team at our store, we've got an executive team of leaders there, is number one, we want to set a framework for our team to work within so they can excel at what they do and do what they do best, which is why we hired them, right? So some of that framework is our mission for the store, which is taking pride in delivering lifetime experience. And when we say that, we mean it not only for our customers, but for our employees as well. And then providing a decision-making framework around that so they can excel without the micromanagement or, without us having to worry. Now, obviously, we keep an eye on all this stuff, but that framework is safety, show, courtesy, and efficiency, right? So we teach all our employees that as they go throughout their day, if they have to make decisions on behalf of the customer or on behalf of the dealership, they're evaluating it within that framework so they can feel empowered to make those decisions, right? And what we've seen is that as we let loose of the reins a little bit for our people to take charge of what they're doing, we've seen increased productivity and increased employee experience and all of that type of stuff. So our first step in really motivating is providing the framework in which an employee can use their skills and excel within the realm we hired them to excel in.
So Matt, you talk about wanting more empathy between sales and marketing. What do you mean by that?
Well, I was certainly humbled, selling cars. So if nobody's ever sold a car before, I think that's a great place to start. Even if you followed a salesperson around as a sales assistant for a day and just went through that experience a couple times, I think you'd realize the challenge of selling a car and interacting with people. There's rejection. There's other things that people face. I often compare it to a football team. I like to consider the sales team as the offensive line. They're doing a lot of blocking and tackling, a lot of execution every day. The marketing team might be the fancy wide receiver core, right? The general manager or the dealer principal is sort of the quarterback or owner of the team. But the ball has to be passed around a little bit, and we have to appreciate all sides. So I think sometimes departments, sales and marketing departments can butt heads because it's about leads or quality of leads, or, the sales team sucks, they don't do a good job with my leads, or the sales team feels like the marketing team sucks, they don't get me enough leads, or, those types of dynamics. But I think we just have to be really human and appreciate the fact that we all have challenges, right? So I think marketing teams can do things sales teams cannot. I think sales teams can do things that marketing cannot. And so I think that's where the empathy comes of just trying to find some mutual understanding, similar to sales and service as well. I think sales teams shouldn't be afraid of going into the shop or be talking to the scary technician or something.
You haven't met my techs.
Yeah, they are intimidating, but having an appreciation, our whole business doesn't even work without technicians. So I love the recognition. We do that too. We hang tech names in the banners, in the rafters and stuff. So just appreciation of somebody else's journey in auto. It might be different than yours.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you in a minute, what's the practical application of that? But first, I'm going to share one of the practical applications we do at our company is Friday shout out meetings, where literally the company comes together and it gives us the chance, and it builds on itself, where somebody from one department will shout out to somebody on another department of how they helped them that week, or how they went outside of their job description and did something, and we all get to hear that, right? It's like it's a positive crossfire that happens. What's a practical application that you guys are using to build empathy between sales and marketing?
The power of storytelling. I think, we've been doing West Her Wednesdays for, Brad, how long? 8 years now or something. So every Wednesday we profile a West Her employee. We've added Technician Tuesdays because we wanted techs to have their own lanes. We also do Saturday spotlights, and we also do little mini moments in the sun on social. So we're leveraging marketing tools that we have to identify and recognize people within our company, right? One of our jobs is to just tell stories of our people authentically. And I think that's a way to help communicate. Right? It might not fully solve the empathy problem.
Yeah.
I would say though, like, I don't know if you teach empathy. I think Scott would say we try to hire people with empathy. So I think that's a big part of our like recruiting and hiring culture. I'm not going to make you empathetic, maybe. Yeah. I might be able to inspire you or encourage you to be more empathetic, but if you don't have that baseline, I'm out of luck, probably.
Cool. Kayla, so I want to talk a little bit about change management and how you see that, I guess what parts of that you have influence over within your organization, and then also overarching, how is that received from leadership and all the way down, so that way you can move towards a revenue goal or move towards a new process goal in your company?
So I think when I first joined, my team was like, oh God, not this girl. Please no new stuff. Like, don't make us do this. And one thing we started to do was celebrate our differences. We used something called predictive index. And that allowed me, because we fell flat on our faces in quite a few change initiatives. We have an omni-channel sales process. We have, pickup and delivery was new, and we had all this new stuff, and MPIs that were videos, and techs wanted me to pay them to do this stuff and whatever, right? And so I think what it really comes down to is we use this predictive index tool because it tells me who's great at details. Who has no fear of anything? Who am I going to have to make sure isn't running through too many walls? And we mix these people up, and they all know where they sit. Every single one of them. We talk, we say, hey team, this is what we're doing. This is what you're great at. This is what you're great at. By the way, you have a blind spot right here, and this person's going to help cover it on this initiative. And it's been huge for us. We do that in hiring. When people come on, they know who's coming. You might be a specialist. You might be a captain. You might be an operator that's really great at understanding how people feel. So we use that day to day in change management, because you can lay out a process all day long, but at the end of the day, it's about the people. And I hate process evaporation more than anything. And I have 3 stores, so not quite as many as you, but I have to get around to all of them and make sure it doesn't evaporate. And having those people help me is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Danny, can I just, add to change management, I heard Liza Borges talk about the 30-day cycle that we're on, and I think as vendors, there's many vendors in the room. I think you guys can appreciate sort of this like month to month intensity that we all face to justify our existence or whatever. So often I think urgency overrides important, and sometimes important tasks take more than 30 days to execute, right? So having patience with yourself, your team, your company, your customers, through some of those changes, I think is really, really critical. But there are some dynamics that set us up to fail, I guess, a little bit in auto, right? Our pay plans, our monthly bonus structures, like a lot of those things set us up to fail. So I would just say that 30-day cycle encourages this like rapid, like panicked, like we're starting at zero again, like let's go, and coming up with new ideas. Or a general manager has a bad month the month before and is desperate to do something, so they're going to spend $15,000 on a direct mail piece out of desperation, like the crack cocaine of our industry, right? Like we're just these like short-term addicts in a way, right? But change is hard, and it should be anything meaningful worth changing is going to take years, right? So I think being patient is a big key as leaders.
I think another thing that really helps with change management that I've experienced is you have to set the pace and the tone of that change, but you also have to be in it, right? So one of the big things that through some of the initiatives we've pushed is really being there, being part of that change, communicating the change, but listening to your people during the change, right? Because not everything goes to plan. And there are things that you're going to have to pivot on as you walk through things in order to make it better or process better or anything along those lines. Some of the big initiatives that I watched our dealership fail through was largely because our management team that was pushing that change wasn't involved after they announced it. Hey guys, this is what we're doing now.
Good luck.
And good luck. And then they didn't want to hear anything after that point, right? It's just like, no, this is what we're doing. And it's like, well, guys, come on. Like, you've got frontline people that are expressing dissatisfaction for a reason, right? Some of it is just because they don't want to change. But some of it is going to be real feedback that you can adjust to. And I think that's really important to keep in mind as you go through that type of stuff, because that's where you get, that's where you get the empowerment and motivation in your employees to, take hold of that change and then drive it when they feel like you're in tune to what's happening.
The other thing is there's so much fear surrounding change a lot in automotive, because let's be honest, like, we're not huge on change. We're not huge on technology. Like, if you really visit a lot of stores. And one thing I always remind my team is, I'm like, guys, you know what? Like, what? If this fails, the old way's still there. It's going to be right there. We can go right back to it. It's going to be okay. Like, let's just give this a good run for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it takes. And having each person own a section of that is so important, because that feedback, like you're saying, is vital. The process you end up with is never the process you start with.
A lesson that I learned in change management is when you rehab a house, it's actually harder than building a new home. And the opportunity you have in building something new is you get to revision what that new future state might look like. And there's so much intention and inspiration that happens. So that's just a lesson that we learned. It's an opportunity to improve process versus stay in the same system and then try to change process.
We have gone through some intentional processes at Westher to be very careful of introducing new shiny widgets. I know exciting widgets are exciting, right? Things are exciting, but to try to get the most out of a tool. Yep. And advocate for the tool that we have, like a lifecycle marketing tool that we've been using for 8 years now, I guess. It wasn't like overnight a success. We had to advocate for it internally. We had to train people on how to use it. We had to continue to use it. We had to continue to reinforce, reminding, talking about it, but years, literally years. So why do I want to get super distracted with another lifecycle tool, right? Just because it's a different UI that I like better or something, right? So we just have to be careful as leaders to, I think, resist the temptation to change too much or change unnecessarily.
So this is the part when I see nobody raises hands for questions, so I start picking people.
Yes, let's go.
Hi, Ashley. So you ran marketing for Walzer for digital operations for many years. What is in your mind one of the big challenges you had that you would like to ask them on how to solve?
Oh gosh. I mean, we did a lot of change at Walzer. I think the biggest thing, and I love change management. I do have to say that, like, that is my favorite topic to talk about because I love getting the buy-in. But I think one of the questions I have is, when everybody's trying to move so fast, how do you slow them down, right? Because you know how it goes. Your leadership is like, all right, that's not working. Let's try this. Or I got this idea because I talked to this person. And you're like, we're halfway through implementation of this process. How do I just wait and let this ride out before we go and pivot into another way? And I haven't even been able to show you the results of this.
That was better than I thought it was going to be. Well, yeah.
Ashley, you're a beast. That's a great question. So I'll take a shot. Here's what I would say. I think we have to over communicate the things that are happening. So I think often, especially in the marketing space, there's a lot of what I call popcorn brain ideas. These are ideas that were just thought of 5 seconds ago and then emailed to the marketing team to do something about. And so the marketing team has a challenge of disseminating, is this something I have to do? Is this going to be important to do? Is it going to be something that matters in 30 days? So I think often just being able to articulate, well, here are all the current priorities that we are doing and having an active dialogue with leadership or with the store or whomever to just make sure that they're aware of the priorities that are half implemented, or we're still working on part A. I know you want to be at Z, but we're getting A solved. I say all the time, I'm doing anything simply across 39 stores is not simple. Like it could just be like hanging a piece of paper on a door or something. Like it takes effort. We updated the bathroom signs in all of our bathrooms. We wanted to like communicate to customers that we care the bathrooms are clean, right? Like you should have seen our office boxes and picture frames and like just that. It seems so trivial, but I think we get into these like theoretical conversations of data and how are we going to structure data and make actionable decisions. Like those are heady, difficult conversations, let alone putting a picture frame in a bathroom, right? So I just think communicating priorities and like where we're at and what all the plates that we're all juggling is an important piece of change management, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is you can put dollars behind that. So I jokingly call it like a tool turnover. It's expensive. It takes forever to get up onto a new one. You can do a cost of $1 calculation, shout out NADA, and try to show them, hey, this is how much money we're losing by continually changing. Like, what are we really doing here? What are we communicating to our people? Is this a clear vision? Absolutely not. So, going into the new tool too with the right expectations and saying, hey, we expect results in 90 days, not 30. Or this is going to take us this long to teach everybody how to get up and running on this is so important. And a lot of times when you're communicating with upper management, dollars is what speaks.
So your question kind of gave me like PTSD because my father, who's the dealer of our organization, is is one of those guys who's very visionary, but he just wants to bam, 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 right? And like every new shiny object could be a whole new thing. And that's how it was when I came into the store. And so when we started changing, I had to really set clear expectations with him and say, hey, number one, why are we changing, right? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? I think that's like first thing anybody should ask themselves, why am I doing this? Because if you don't have that clear vision as to what it is that you're trying to achieve, like to start it is a bad idea, right? You're just going to go down and spend a lot of time and effort on something that you're not really going after that's clearly defined. And then number two was, what's our time expectation and what should we measure in order to say this change is working or not working, and things like that. So he was under the impression that everything should happen, within like weeks, right? And you're like, well, you can't even get everybody on board within weeks, right? So one of my things with him is, my number a lot of times is like 6 months, right? I mean, think about that. Like you're committing to something for 6 months. And if you think you can commit to it for 6 months, it might be worth doing. But also it helps you establish all the foundation to say this is good or not good. Because it's going to, if you're bought in, it's going to take your people time to buy into that change and then to start executing on that change. So a lot of that, I think, is just communicating those expectations and why you're doing it, and then setting the metrics you want in order to say this is going in the right direction or not.
I learned a lot from Liza, I guess, because yesterday she was talking about the place you are in as a leader. And you've been wrestling with the decision for 6 months or whatever. You make that place and now you're comfortable. You've gotten to the whatever 4 stages that you talked about. It's and we expect that, right? It's like, oh, cool. I'm gonna go tell my salesperson we're going all digital or whatever, right? Like, and they're not there yet. They're like, well, does that mean I have a job? Like, are AI robots taking over? Like, what does that mean? I have to use this iPad now? Am I allowed to still call a customer? Like, what is it? Right? Like all these like processes we have to go through. We get excited, I think, sometimes. Like, let's go.
So with that, I'm gonna pick on you, Liza, for a second, if that's a question possible. So I think you and I both believe people protect what they create and what they care about, right? How do you, as a leader, communicate your vision while also giving your teams the ability to make it their own? I'd love to hear your answer and then also pass that to them.
I thought you were going to let me ask a question. You asked me a question. You flipped the script on me. And this isn't going to exactly answer your question, so I'll see if I can get to that in 1 second. But it's a little bit to what Ashley asked and some of what you all were just discussing. We just took all of our teams through Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius. And what we found, I think Ashley had made a comment about Sometimes you're really far down in the process, and then people are still throwing back ideas, and we've kind of already made the decision and moved forward. And this also will go back to, how do people own the vision and make it not just mine, but our whole team? And that means getting all the voices involved. And so we've been really learning and now implementing the process of wonder first, asking all the questions, making sure everybody's involved in what is the problem that we're actually trying to solve. Are we really focusing on the most important things? Then you go into invention and you brainstorm all the potential solutions. Throw everything up there on the whiteboard. And then you move into discernment and make the decision on which is the direction we're going to go. And once you've made that decision, everybody should, when they start asking questions, be like, you know what, we've spent 2 months asking the questions with you and throwing all the ideas. Now we're moving forward with the decision that we've collectively decided was the best option. And then you move into galvanizing, put all the right people on the team to make it happen and implement it, enabling, giving them the tools, support, and coaching, and then ultimately the tenacity that it takes to get it over the finish line. So that process has been really interesting for us to learn. But the biggest takeaway from us was when we all went through the assessment, we found out most of our leadership team were D's and T's, and we had very few wonderers and inventors. And I think about the auto industry in that 30-day cycle, we just find a solution and we run. And we aren't patient enough to spend the time asking the questions, are we solving the right problem? What are all the potential solutions to this problem? Like, throw them all up there, things that we don't take the time to think about in our normal daily lives because we're just busy selling and servicing cars. But if we can pause for a moment, be patient, as Matt said, and do that work first, then when we're ready to implement, we're all on board with this being the right decision and not then second guessing ourselves and going back to the wonder and invention when we're far down the line. So hopefully that also allows for it not just to be the leader's vision, but that we're all bought into the process and the direction. And then there might be people not involved in the process, Matt, that we've got to go through those 4, betrayal, denial, and ultimately renewal. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I love this conversation.
One lesson I've learned from change and having vision of the future or whatever, if it's done really effectively, and I've experienced this where you might be 2 years ahead of the rest of your team on something, and the organization gets there 2 years later. They've forgotten you were there 2 years ago. So actually, I've taken some quiet satisfaction out of some things. Not to like pat myself, but like it's not like you're going to be trumpeted 2 years later as a leader of like, oh, you were right 2 years ago, Liza. Like that was like, no, it's not going to be that. It's going to be, your COO now. It was like, I told you, we got, so somebody else will sort of maybe get the credit sometimes for change or where it happens. But that's just a real subtlety that I've been learning lately, that like, okay, you thought about this a long time ago, quality of data maybe or something, right? Well, now we're getting to a place where we can practically execute it through certain organizational objectives. So it's an interesting signal as an individual, because you're used to, I think, as an individual getting an A+ on your report card or whatever, right? That doesn't happen, I don't think, in our positions as much.
I forgot I did have a question too.
Oh, great.
And it's probably mainly for you, Matt, but it might also be relevant for you guys too. As you're implementing a major change in your organization, with the 39 stores, I think, did I get that number right? We've struggled with, is it a change that we need to go across the board at all 23 rooftops? Or do we try it at a couple stores first, find successes, get through the roadblocks, and then eventually take it across the board, which takes a lot longer? Or is it that, how do I determine, is it that important that it's a non-negotiable, it needs to be everywhere right away? That's the way I tend to want to lean, and then we struggle. So I would just love to hear how you all have tackled that across rooftops.
As with any good question, and the answer is probably it depends on the initiative and who it's impacting. I think our sales and service teams have different cultural norms with respect to group-wide initiatives. I would say our fixed teams lean a little more towards trying at a couple stores or within one brand to see if this is something like a service scheduler they want to bring across the whole group, where our sales and variable leadership often take a little bit more of what I'll call as a coffee table approach, where we're trying to blanket the network with a strategic decision. and there's pros and cons, I think, to both of those things. But one thing related to our marketing team, Team West Her, Josh Allen's a spokesman of ours, and we've worked with him as a rookie, and now he's a pretty famous celebrity quarterback. But it's been 4 years in the making of a Team West Her concept that has grown beyond just celebrity endorsement to our employees feeling a part of Team West Her. So I remember when we first started using hashtag Team West Her 5 years ago, I was using it all the time, everything I could think of. It didn't make sense then. Nobody understood it yet, right? You stay with it. And now we're making content around our stories of our hardworking team members about Team West Her, right? So it started with this thing and grew, and obviously we kind of rode the rocket ship with Josh's celebrity as well and benefited from that from an influencer perspective or types of content we can make on social. But that's just like staying the course and like allowing it to like organically catch hold inside the organization. I think I don't really believe force feeding anything on anyone, right? So I think if you have a real stubborn store somewhere or whatever, you got to empower them to like find their way probably, right? And be flexible.
So I'm sitting next to somebody who I think cares about education, Mike with NADA, and I think education is part of empowering your team to go further. So what are some of the challenges you have faced around getting dealerships to take education as an important part of their ability to grow their company? And I would love for you then to also ask them a question.
All right, thanks everyone. So the number one thing is the people that are here are pretty much invested in the academy. I mean, Liza sent most of her general managers through our academy in the last couple of years. The people sitting next to me are all graduates of the academy. So the people that are here, Kayla's graduate of the academy recently. So the people that are here believe in education, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here. And from my seat, I get to see probably the top 5% of our industry that are invested in education. So I have to look at it and the fact that I have a little bit of a jaded view where I get to see the people that are trying to better themselves, that have elected to invest in themselves for an entire year, for an entire $25,000, $30,000 investment in themselves, or the dealership has invested in them. So I'm very fortunate to be in that position. That being said, when people come to our classes, they learn a tremendous amount, and we don't encourage them to go back and change those items right away. There are certain things to be aware of, certain things to be prepared for, and certain things to act on right now. Are there some students that go back and make significant changes right away? If it's in the act now bucket, yes. Because if they don't make those changes, it will impact not only their dealership, their bottom line, their family, being the team members, and their own personal family. But there are a lot of things that we'll go over that are not in those buckets yet. So there's a lot of things to think about in terms of where you are on that cycle of what needs to be changed. And we focus on that every day in the academy, every day. So I'm in a great position to see the people that have decided to invest in themselves with education. So in terms of how you build a culture of education, it's a culture of training and development within your dealership. It's every day. And you see, when we have sales meetings in our classes, you can see who is invested in that and developed that type of culture of training and education, and the people that have to learn that skill set, which is not easy. It requires leadership. And eventually, it's the stores that will succeed are the ones that have embraced a culture of learning every single day. So that's my feedback on that question. So in terms of my question for you, if you could build it yourselves with no OEM involvement, with no management involvement, what's the first process that you would change at your stores? The first one, not all of them, the first one.
Onboarding. I know this is a silly one and an easy one, but it takes so long in a Ford store, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that OEM, to get somebody to actually be able to do anything. You name it, from like we have stars training and all this kind of stuff, and it takes way too long, and oftentimes we need someone right away, and it totally kills the excitement that automotive is. So that'd probably be a quick, easy one.
I think it's well, this one's just top of mind, so I don't know if it'd be the first one I change or if it's just really in my thought process right now, is it's around really improving our service experience at the store and how that communication with customer occurs. And to me, that's twofold communication. That's not only communication from an advisor standpoint with the customer, but also from the technician standpoint with the customer. So one of our big pushes right now is video MPVI. And getting our technicians on board with communicating with the customer, because I think seeing is believing in a lot of ways, and it's connecting a customer with the person doing the work on their vehicle, right? I think there's a more personal connection there. So, that's probably one of the big things I would change right away is how do I get my techs more involved with my customers? Because I think that's just going to empower my advisors even more to deliver a better experience with them as well.
I'll take a slightly different approach, not related to changing an in-store process necessarily. I would just comment that dealer groups are in various stages of their life cycle. So Wester has grown 30% in the last 2.5 years. So it's cool to sit up here and say we have 39 stores. That sounds impressive and whatever. But I would tell you that it's filled with its own challenges organizationally. And so I think as a process change, I think one of the things we're working towards and trying to improve is our leadership coordination and communication. Somebody in the audience I think was talking about over communicating, or just it's impossible to over communicate. And I think sometimes our leadership will misunderstand the power of an email. So I sent an email 2 weeks ago. Didn't you see it? Dude, you know how many emails we get? Right? Or some people don't learn that way, or they can't absorb the tone that way. So you might also have to send a text or sit down with the person individually, or send a little video message, or make a social post in the employee group. These multifaceted ways that we need to communicate now as a 3,000 person organization. I think that would be maybe the process I would work on top of mind, trying to improve just the communication flow.
Awesome. So, hey, Lou, you have a question?
So to Caleb, so you said you're onboarding, which I completely agree. When we train stores, we try to make sure that within 2 weeks, a person is able to go from green to ready to talk to customers. But that doesn't always work depending on the OEM. The independent world, it's a little different. Yeah. But ideally though, so if that's something you would like to see, because so often we have that warm body, we have that person ready to go to work, I think a dangerous piece is releasing them way too early. But what would be the ideal situation for you all to see a person come in and then be released confident and trustworthy? I want to trust that person the same that I trust my veterans when they speak to my customer. So what would be the ideal onboard timing for a new hire for you guys?
Again, good question, and I'm gonna say it depends. So in advisor role, we're gonna have a long period of shadowing there. Same with sales. That's just how we operate. My comment was more geared toward all the OEM stuff that I can't change, that you have to sit at a computer and physically do, KPA, all that good stuff, which is great. But normally I try to have them doing something active within 4 days, whether that's just following somebody around or whatever it might be, because you lose that initial enthusiasm. And I'm so particular about who I hire, and I don't want to dull that. I don't want to drop them like rocks. So yeah, advisors, they're gonna shadow in the first couple of days. Sales are gonna start to drive EVs home in the first couple of days. Things that aren't necessarily gonna impact me customer-wise yet, but can get a feel like, hey, go run and get keys from the key track. Here's how we check this, or whatever it might be. So not just sitting in front of that computer, kind of like zombied out.
It depends for us as well. I know one of the things I think we do particularly well is our sales onboarding. It's a lot of thought that myself and my management team has put into that, and that's a month process. I mean, they start and they will not have their own deal in front of them for an entire month. And in the first half of that is in classroom training with my management team around learning our processes, learning the mission of the store, doing all the factory training and things like that. And then the last 2 to 3 weeks, it kind of depends. They have to test out with my manager and take them through an entire deal before they can hit live with the customer. So it takes about 2 to 3 weeks, but they're shadowing one of our product specialists. They both have a list of all the skills that person needs to learn in that shadowing as well, so they can pass the final walkthrough with the manager. So we put it on some of our more seasoned people to train them. And then when they come out, our product specialists each have a partner. So they're partnered with a more seasoned person as well. That way, if they've got questions, if they need help, they've got somebody they can go to and feel more comfortable with in order to, be better for our customer base. So we've seen really, really strong results from that coming right out of training.
The other thing we've gotten really into is fast feedback, right? So like you start selling cars, but where's the feedback? What'd you do well? What didn't you? So every single one of my new advisors and sales associates will have this is kind of crazy, but I brought it from home building, a body cam shopper that comes in and does the process with them. And the whole point is I can give them real feedback on what they did. And it's intimidating at first, but then afterwards, it's the best form of feedback that I can give. This is real. We've talked about this 100 times. Why didn't it happen? And then it's a little bit easier to kind of show them the way through that.
Have you identified any resting bee faces like Dr. Lipkin identified yesterday?
Yeah, we have a few.
Yes. Sometimes just putting a mirror in front of yourself while you're talking, like, why am I so grumpy looking?
All awesome.
We're out of time, yeah.
Great. A month, that's great to set somebody up like that and to make them confident. I absolutely love it. And you're right, it does. It's going to vary depending on what you got to learn. The question I did have earlier, though, just speaking more on the individuals and then the teams, whether over many rooftops or just one, how do you promote healthy competition?
That's such a good question. I know I talked about this a little bit earlier with the predictive index thing that we use. We put everybody on teams and the teams cycle pretty regularly. The other thing too that's, I think in sales especially, right, is it's kind of like a snake thing every once in a while, and then that's not really the message that you want on your floor. We run 4-day work weeks now, so you have to have a teammate. Like you don't have a choice anymore because this has to be your buddy that's delivering your car. I've built your teams out, so you've got a specialist and a captain. Like there's all these different people with all these different strengths. It's basically like disc on steroids. And you're working together all the time. And if they might even tap each other in now, which I would never see before, and split the tick and be like, hey, I've got a super analytical customer, man. That's not me. Like I am the hype man through and through. I cannot do this. Or, hey, this female does not trust me at all. Kira, can you hop in? So they're improving my close rate by using each other's skills. And it's so awesome. And of course, I've got some cash at the end of the day for the team that does the best.
One of the things we really try to do is actually, I wouldn't say that we put a lot of focus around promoting competition amongst our team. It's really trying to promote competition with themselves to improve and grow in their own skills. I don't like the inner competition between teams. I feel like it separates them more rather than actually working as a team to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So a lot of that is, done with, I've got a very small manager to salesperson ratio, right? So what that allows them to do is my management is really investing in 2 to 4 people to get them really honed into developing their own skills, so they're improving themselves to a place that they feel confident they can get, right? So that's kind of how we focus on that.
I think we're tight on time. I just want to add the piece about people. Our expectation of our managers at West Her is when you're driving into work that day, that's the first and really only thing you should be thinking about is your people and what's going on in their lives. Recognizing that some person might be going through a divorce and you need to sit down with them and have a cup of coffee. How was your night last night? Somebody might have gotten some scary health news of a family member. Check in on them and see what's going on there. Not everybody can run at 1,000% every moment of time. So I think as a management team and being cognizant of the world outside of the office, right, I think makes you a better, more empowered manager and gives people a sense that somebody's in my corner, right? We see you. We know what you're going through. Like, it's totally cool. Go take the afternoon off. Like, it's no problem or what. So having that flexibility, I think, we're the topic of the session, I think about people and empowering people, right? Like we got real practical for a second, but like, I just think that like human connection is like the most important thing we can do as managers.
Okay, with that, can I have the three of you stand right here? I heard them clap and they sucked. Can we give these people a huge round of applause?